Feels like autumn in New York. Bring it on, bring it on. Well, just a little bit. Just to get rid of that humidity. I love it. The show is Insight. My name is Mark Farrell. It's the Progressive Radio Network. How you feeling? I'm feeling like $1 million. Well, I wish I was feeling like $300 million. No, I was not the recipient of the winning Powerball ticket. But we're going to talk about that because, my son and I were mentioning that, and my wife, and then I started telling him about boats and multiple residences, and it got me thinking about material items and how would it really change your life. A lot of great things coming your way today. We're going to be talking about the famed Lenny Dykstra. No, Lenny, you didn't. Yes, he did. We're going to meet Albert Rizzi. He's the CEO and founder of My Blind Spot, an incredible organization that's just doing unbelievable things that's changing the way all of us will be living. It believes that all individuals are entitled to acceptance, encouragement, and respect, as well as freedom from discrimination, labeling, and stereotyping, regardless of their challenges in life. Hear, hear! And he has arrived. And not only that, but he had a treacherous ride in today. We're going to talk on that because it's actually timely, his experience, and what My Blind Spot stands for and what they do. Now we're going to be talking about some interesting things. It's actually kind of about a little bit sports slanted this morning because former NFL Chiefs star Neil Smith did something very interesting. I guess he reacted like most professional players do. They don't think, they just react. And they're so innately, instinctively trained that the other day in Missouri, he saw a woman driving a minivan, and she was driving into an area that was blocked off because it was flooded. And sure enough, I think when it got up to her windows, what a surprise, the car stalled. So he went over there and proceeded to extricate her. Good thing, because if she didn't make it, not only would she have not made it, but her unborn child. She was pregnant. Here's a pregnant woman in a minivan. But then again, we've all seen minivans doing some crazy stuff. It's like you think you'd see people in minivans driving safe in a slow lane. No. I think minivan drivers are like the worst offenders, man. They have the big baby board signs on the back, making the family look all cute. But no, I think these people are like the most craziest people on the road. But anyway, cool thing for, Neil Smith. And I bet you the NFL office, when they got that phone call, were like, thank God it's not a player that's been arrested or OD'd or all the above. No wife abusal. Spouse, no punching bags taking place down in Atlantic City. All those elevator fun things. Oh, honey, would you like to marry me? Bop! Right to the kisser. So I'm sure they were very, very relieved about that. But, it's a great thing. And he said that, Neil said that, he's not the hero. He was just at the right place and the right time. And he deflected it very well. And, he's a classy guy. And it's nice to hear about people, anyone, because I don't suspect, and it's a different world we're living in, especially when I have 2 younger children, and they don't look up to athletes to a large degree just yet. Like my son doesn't have giant posters of any NFL players or NBA players, doing a 10-foot leap into the backboard, doing a dunk. But I'm sure that'll come, and that's cool. But in terms of idolizing people, stars, athletes, and just having them really, as an adult, seeing them as a poor role model. I mean, it happens so frequently. I mean, I think on maybe 2 hands we can count people currently that in mainstream sports, not the kind of the tertiary sports like badminton, water polo. But, we're thinking football, soccer, basketball, hockey. These guys have grown up in a bubble. They're very violent, most of them. Again, this is a macro statement. They're very violent. And yet, of course, they go out and they just think their persona, because it is their persona mostly, is larger than life. And they expect the royal treatment. And I think that's a good segue into our next topic. It's closely aligned, but on the opposite spectrum of Neil Smith comes Lenny Dykstra, now playing for the Mets. I remember seeing Lenny on the field, and I was never a big baseball player. To refresh your memory, because I'm like, my vision is crap. Not as crap as the gentleman I'm certain who's to my right. And by the way, we're on Facebook Live. If you're streaming our audio, check out Facebook and go on to the Progressive channel, and then you can wave to myself, Albert Rizzi, and Vaughn. We'll get Vaughn on camera. Vaughn is Albert's a guide dog. Beautiful dog. Anyway, Lenny Dykstra, he was nicknamed Nails because he was gritty. He was a strong player, a very effective player. And, he did his job very well. Of course, with the help of steroids. You ever see the size of his head? Oh, my God. It's like a bowling ball with ears, but bigger. It's like one of those floats when you go down to the parade when it gets queued up here the day before Thanksgiving. On the Upper West Side, it's like one of those floats that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's Lenny Dykstra's test, but I digress. So besides speaking incoherently when he's not completely inebriated, he checked into a hotel over the weekend out in the Hamptons. A very boutique hotel, small hotel, Hotel Z as in zebra, E as in Edward, because that itself it says how boutique-ish it is. And this is all on video, by the way, the following I'm about to tell you. Well, most of it, because whatever took place behind the confines of Lenny Dykstra's door is up to the owner to tell his story, and it's very interesting. So apparently, he checked in, and within a few minutes, within the first hour, the owner of the hotel smelled something very, marijuana-ish, and had to track this down because, number one, they have a very strict no smoking policy. It's a safety thing, etc. And people are paying. I'm sure it's a $400 or $500 a night hotel. The smaller the hotel, the more expensive it is typically. And the better thread count. The better pillows, right? Those are the ones you want to sneak home, but you can't. Or your wife won't let you, or your partner, whatever the case may be. But you have to do it on slide. So anyway, he knocks on the door, Mr. Dykstra, I'm sure, blah, blah, blah. And of course, it didn't sink in at all because he kept piping up all weekend. And so the reality is the hotel owner is claiming that he trashed the hotel. Now, no surprise, again, this is the antithesis of Neil Smith and many, many other players. But again, we've heard countless stories for years, long before I was even on this earth, of players, rock and roll stars, people who just feel entitled because of their celebrity status, which is a bunch of BS. Because I don't care who you are, you know what? Hey, if you want to have a good time, break a few lamps, that's fine. But to think that you're above the law on so many different levels, and to steal, which you're going to be hearing more about momentarily, then that's just ridiculous because you're living in a false, again, there's that bubble of reality, form of reality. And I'm sorry, even in your heyday, you're not excused from that. And now, 25 years after, or less than that, maybe 20 years later, after he retired. I mean, come on, he thinks he can get away with this? So anyway, he keeps calling down. This is the part I can't really wrap my head around. He keeps calling down for excessive amounts of towels and buckets of ice. Is my man so on fire he needs to cool down? Or maybe, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that the owner reports that they get a 3 a.m. call. They keep getting all these calls for more towels, more ice. And then a woman answers in the buff and then welcomes and invites the owner in. And I think he declines. And she's like, no, please come in. I think the owner, this is me speculating, wanted to come in to find out probably what kind of condition his room is in with all the debaucherous activities that were happening for the last, who knows, day. He checked in for 2 days, but this was, I believe, the first day. So he goes in there, and I believe he's kind of, mouth probably went agape in what he saw, besides the one buff woman. I think there were multiple buff women, and the room was in disarray, et cetera, et cetera. So I think he just did his thing and walked out. And of course, Lenny Dykstra was saying, "Are you kidding me? I am the hotel guest of the year for that place. I won't give them another dime of my money." Because why? I don't know. Because he left 2 bags and he left a handwritten note. It said, "Can you please forward these to my home address?" Like, again, here's another athlete feeling entitled. Like, well, just because you stay there, I mean, if you set this up with them, I'm sure in advance they would have been happy to take care of it, because obviously hotels and every business nowadays is about customer service. So I guess the owners are like, no, we're not going near this. So somehow they got in touch with his handler or something like that. Not the handlers that were in the buff. I think other types of handlers, professional handlers, if that can be equated with Lenny Dykstra. Anyway, so they go through the bags, the assistants do, and find many, many of the hotel towels in his bag, sheets from the bed in Lenny Dykstra's bag, and more items, soaps and all this stuff, because Lenny Dykstra is, on top of the world and needs to take those, boutique hotel bars of soap home. Now, me, Mark Farrell, I love those really good smelling boutique hotel bars of soap. I'll go down in a gift shop, or what I actually usually do is go up to the maid and say, how much will $20 get me? Because my wife really likes these soaps. And they're like, happy to open up your bag. Oh, where are you? And they give you handfuls of soap. And, I always intend on using them when I get home, and then I never do. And then once when I'm looking for something, I'm like, oh, honey, look, I put a new bar of soap in the shower. And she's like, oh, yeah, it brings me right back to Ibiza, wherever else we were. So anyway, Lenny Dykstra, it's just going back to my point about how celebrity status, athletes, whatever, just feel like they have the run of the planet. Rules don't apply to them, and that's not true. I just don't understand these people. And of course, in this day of where fodder just gets more fuel in real news stories, that's the thing that I think that the media should just really just kind of let go of, because the reality is people like Jerry Lewis, who died over the weekend, who we'd like to speak about quickly, really did something very, valuable with his life. Whether you like Jerry Lewis or you thought he was a complete babbling idiot and you couldn't stand his voice, that's a different story. But you know what? For, I think it was 44 years, he was having that telethon on, I guess, all the major networks. I'm not sure if it was one specific network that raised, millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And that alone speaks volumes about, his humanitarianism. But you know what? I was not aware of how many films Jerry Lewis made. And I know there were actually movie theaters named after him, but I guess it's just kind of one of those things you just take for granted. But he made countless movies with Dean Martin. And actually, they had a show together for years. So it was very interesting how their whole shtick worked together. And I was reading about that, and I'd like to read actually more about that, and maybe that'll pique your interest. But he had a whole big career before moving into the realm of, excuse me, of where we kind of knew him for the last, popular culture for the last 20 years. And very interesting, when he ended his stint, which never got really clarified why he and Dean Martin split. Neither one of them actually spoke publicly about a real reason. And maybe there wasn't a real reason besides the fact that, it went its way. They did their show and kind of things run its course, and that's it. And there doesn't have to be any more to that, right? Everyone's always looking for more. Well, there's got to be something. Maybe that's just the entire reason. So apparently Jerry Lewis, and I believe maybe his first wife back then, go away to the weekend to Vegas. And they're hanging out, and apparently Jerry Lewis was very much in a crossroads in his life professionally. Didn't know what to do, was having a show with Dean Martin for years and years, and now he doesn't know what to do. He gets a phone call while he's in Vegas from Barbra Streisand's husband. I don't recall his name. Anyway, it's a moot point. Saying she has laryngitis, she can't perform, something of that nature. Is there any way you can fill in for her tonight? P.S. He does. She's backstage, can't speak. And he hasn't sang in, I forget what the article said, 15, 20 years, I believe. And when he does sing, I believe it's more of a tongue-in-cheek type of singing. So he did this for 1,000+ audience, and it went overwhelmingly well. To the point where he got off stage and said, well, I know what I'm doing next. So he got out of his, his rut and his crossroads of life, and that kind of sealed the deal for the rest of his career. So that's kind of interesting how things kind of fall into place. Like, we've all had times in our lives where maybe we've been feeling like a dead-end job, or you just feel like you're not doing really what you want to do or what you're meant to do. And whether it's because you put the legwork into it, or serendipitously things happen for you, and wham, things work out. So it worked out for him, obviously, because he's got had the chops to do everything as a performer, entertainer, comedian, things of that nature. And so, I tip my hat to Jerry Lewis. I wasn't a huge fan. I certainly respected him for what he did and all the lives that he impacted. So especially all those at Muscular Dystrophy Association, I'm sure will be doing something on her. And I'm not sure if there's going to be something happening in a week and a half, which is kind of hard to say. Believe that Labor Day weekend is hours away, essentially. Wow. 16 minutes after the hour, 11 o'clock. Mark Farrell with you on the Progressive Radio Network. The show is Insight. Powerball, yeah, so we spoke about that. How would your life change? Would it become just more complicated or less complicated because maybe you wouldn't have to work an extra job, fret about paying for college, retirement, 401k, all those things that, kind of stress people out, marriages, relationships that usually are at the nucleus of all separations, finalities, is money. So I was talking to my family. We had this whole thing planned out. What would you do? What would we do? Would you tell anybody? And I think we came down to the point where actually it was a semi-serious conversation. Would you tell anybody? And it comes down to the point where, I think we realized that we wouldn't even tell our family. I know that sounds cold, removed, and callous, but I love my family. I'm the last of 5. But they got some big flappers. The Irish, man, I don't know if they can keep a secret. So we figured we'd pay off everyone's mortgage, give everyone $100K or whatever more, and but our life wouldn't change too much. Maybe I told my son we'd buy a boat, maybe buy another house. But the reality is, I would I would love to open a nonprofit, keep doing what I do, and do it for free. Speak at schools, speak at colleges, organizations, companies about pivotal things that impact people's lives. And to be able to do that at a level and not charge people would be great. Open a bigger umbrella company and have this maybe a part of a facet on a service, an offering. That would be great. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's always nice to pipe dream. What would you do, if this day, the Rainmaker came and knocked on your door and said, hey, here's your winning lottery ticket, payoff day, ding, ding, ding. And then there's apparently the thing called, the lottery curse. If you win it, you drop dead a year later, whatever, but maybe you drop dead, much happier. Who knows? Anyway, it was just kind of interesting to muse because I really ultimately realized that my life wouldn't change. It would be a little bit easier, less stress in terms of worrying about, children's future and obviously taking care of them when you're just dust and things of that nature. So, and he said, well, what if we don't win? I said, well, there's always another lottery. Every day is kind of lottery, right? You never know where you're going to end up, what you're going to be doing, who you're going to be meeting with. And that's kind of how my interaction with Albert Rizzi started. Because I think about a year and a half ago, I read about this organization online called My Blind Spot. So, of course, being visually impaired and in the field that I'm in as a speaker about overcoming adversity, I'm like, wow, what is this, My Blind Spot? So I started reading up about it, and it's just an incredible organization. It does just many, many different levels of service. And, for example, they provide customized roadmaps for organizations to integrate accessibility into their culture, processes and technical infrastructures, deliver accessibility services as a way to advance organizational successes while providing employment opportunities for persons with disabilities. And that's just the tip of the iceberg because they have done so much. So I reached out to this organization, and I'm happy to welcome Albert Rizzi to the show. He's the founder and CEO of My Blind Spot. Hello, Albert, my friend.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I hope you enjoyed that intro. You look kind of bored out there.
I was bored, but there's so many things I thought about as I was listening. I wasn't sure, should I interject? Should I go, oh, yeah, entitlement. I know what that's about.
Yes, exactly. So 2 words that really changed your life a couple years ago. Fungal meningitis.
Fungal meningitis.
Meningitis, yes.
Coffee hasn't kicked in yet.
No, it's actually the vision, not the coffee. My vision, not yours.
Please, I have none. What's the point?
Exactly.
It was odd because about 5 years ago, I was having really bad headaches, and I usually have sinus infections, seasonal allergies. I have an Italian nose that catches everything. And doctor thought it was a sinus infection. And 5 spinal taps later, it was fungal meningitis. It was almost lethal. I kind of beat the odds. I went down to 120 pounds. I'm 6'2", usually about just shy of 200. Left the hospital, went into a drug-induced coma. Woke up on January 6th, 120 pounds, and went in with 20/20 vision and woke up with absolutely nothing. Bit of an overachiever that way. Left. Yeah. Then I left the hospital on the 27th and started living my life as a blind person as best I could.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just incredible. You go to a hospital and you come out totally worse. A different person.
You know what?
Back then, that's how you were thinking.
No. Actually, I thought about that on the 11th of January. I knew in some odd way that my higher power, my spiritual guide.
Cue the gospel music.
Wait, let me get my white robe on. I'll start singing. Let me know I was going to wake up blind.
Really?
It was a choice that I made to come back. I had a choice to either move on to the next realm, whatever that is, which is still kind of sketchy, or to come back. And I chose to come back. And I remember waking up. My mom was rubbing my arm, and she said to me, "Oh, it's okay. You're going to be okay." And I said, "Yeah, no, I get that, Mom, but I'm blind." "Oh, no, we're not sure if it's going to be permanent. We're not sure." I'm like, "Mom, I'm going to be blind. It's good. I can't see. I'm not going to see again." And at that time, we hadn't really determined it. At least we weren't told. They were always being optimistic. But a few days later, a doctor comes in, flashes a light in my eye, and goes to walk away and said, "What's the diagnosis?" "Well, I'll tell your doctor." And I wanted to kill him. I'm like, "Aren't you a doctor? What the hell are you flashing that in my face for?" So I kind of pushed it, and she told me 90% chance you'll never see again, 10% chance things might change scientifically, blah, blah, blah. Off she went. So in that moment, I kind of felt like shit. Can I say that on the radio?
Absolutely.
Good.
Internet radio.
Oh, internet, so I can use 4-letter words too?
You can let the bombs drop.
F-bombs. My mother would love that. Anyway, so, and as it was, I became a bit depressed in that moment and a little bit forlorn, and I had a hard time being able to hold down food for a while because my stomach had constricted so much. I lost so much weight, and around that time, I started to be able to hold down food, and was looking forward, oddly enough, to hospital food being what it is, to a chicken Caesar salad. Now, I was in the restaurant business before, so, I know what chicken Caesar salad should taste like. Yeah, right. So I was looking forward to that. Instead, I got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I was told, "No, that's what you ordered. You check this box right here." And I'm like,
this is how it
fucking
begins.
Unbelievable. I didn't check shit. I'm blind. So I was going off, and as I was going off on this innocent bystander of a woman, my dad walked in with my mother, and I think my brother and his kids. And I was out of control. He goes, "Oh, what's going on here?" And I said, "Fucking wants me to eat this peanut butter, blah, blah. You can't talk to her like that." I said, "Fuck you, I can." He's like, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "I'm talking to you, Dad. You can't talk to me like that." And I'm like, yeah, that boat has sailed. I'm 40, about to be 42. I'm blind now. You lose your parental privileges.
Sure.
Kind of shit. He cleared the room. I'm sorry, I get so choked up. Like it was yesterday when I think of what he did to me. Cleared the room and said, "Look, you can't talk to me like that. I don't care that you're blind. It really sucks to be you right now. If your mother and I could change places with you, we would. Now, your mother doesn't believe in God. She claims she's agnostic, atheist, blah, blah, blah. And she was praying to have you come back. And now here you are, and you're going to be this kind of miserable person? No. I didn't raise a quitter. You're a teacher, a principal. At the time, I had gotten degrees in education because my grandmother was a foster parent.
Dual degrees, correct?
Yeah, 2 degrees in education. One in early childhood, the other one in supervision administration. And so I was an uncle. I was all these other types of successful leadership experiences that I had been called to do, so to speak. And he reminded me of that and said, "You expect 100% from everybody in your life? suck it up and show us what it looks like. You have one or two choices: crawl into a dark depression and never get out of it, or work to become the best blind person there ever has been.
And pave the road for others like you.
And honestly, Mark, that's all it took.
Yeah, that's great.
And I thank my father for that every day. And because of that father-son talk, I was able to rise to the challenge and understanding that for years I was always changing things up in my life, whether it was a relationship, which always seemed to be going down the tubes, but I've been in the same one now for almost 10 years. And if you're out there listening, Brian, I love you. And jobs, because I get bored or I have an attitude adjustment that needs to happen. Basically, my boss doesn't know what he's doing, so I'm going to go someplace else and do it, which, is a bit of an ego issue. So God said, boom, how's this on? Try this on for size.
Interesting.
And I have never seen more clearly in my entire life. I feel so blessed. I feel so lucky, so fortunate. You were talking before with Neil Smith about right place, right time, and Lenny with entitlements, and Jerry Lewis about serendipitous happenings. Being in the right place at the right time that concept has played really well into what I do today at My Blind Spot, which we focus on inspiring access for people of all abilities. It's called My Blind Spot because I miss driving so desperately. And I remember my father, watch the blind spot. I'm like, you're on that side of the car. Can't you watch it?
That's your passenger right job.
That's not my job. You asked for a shotgun. So I figured other people had to have blind spots in their lives. So I figured,
sure,
name it My Blind Spot out of that personal sense of things. And actually, our initial tagline was My Blind Spot, the clear view to diversity. And I was fighting to get them to spell it Clearview, one word, like the expressway, but all my friends would think, you're just a dumb blind person, doesn't know how to spell.
It'd be too localized. Everyone else wouldn't get it,
so
sure.
It was too limiting. But, so that was what it was. And we've developed My Blind Spot to be a conduit to resources that produces results in your life.
Hey, before we go there, Albert, so you decided to go this route. Was that after thoroughly racking your brain about not going back into education?
Well, my employer at the time, a nonprofit in the South Bronx, had decided to fire me while I was still in the hospital.
Was this a charter school?
It was a nonprofit. It wasn't a charter school per se. It was a pre-K program with an after-school component.
And you had a big job there, executive director?
Yeah. Basically the headmaster principal, whatever you want to call it. We had 40 staff, 250 children and their family. We had kids from Africa, African Americans, Hispanics of every variation on a theme, porque yo hablo español, hola.
Un poquito, señor.
Un poquito también. Pero, and then we had, we had a huge contingent of Bangladeshi people. And
sounds like a remarkable school.
It really was, and I was the whitest thing on the street. I glowed in the dark, and I never felt more at home in my entire life by being the the minority, I guess.
Sure.
And it's interesting how with what's going on in this country today, ridiculous, by the way. I think just by stepping into different environments and letting people be present in who they are and not bring judgments or expectations to each of the people we're meeting, regardless of race, gender, orientation, faith, it allows people to feel valued and thereby trust not only in themselves, but in the people they're interacting with who may, quote unquote, be different from them.
And also, it's good for everyone to feel vulnerable.
I agree.
Because my wife is Indian, and she'll say to me, of course, I'm the only minority in this room. And this comes up, and I don't think of her that way because it's just my wife and my partner. And then she works in that kind of world as well, and she brings up different aspects to it, and it's so interesting. And certainly the whole minority ratio and or definition has changed, as you hinted to a moment ago. But it's great for anyone, whatever your race is, to feel like the minority sometimes, so you can feel what what most minorities do encounter every day.
And it's interesting how we define minority. Most of the minorities today are
The majority.
larger populations and should be considered majority, but because
Exactly.
we're going with antiquated myths and misperceptions about what that looks like. But you're right. I think it is interesting, and now I can identify with your wife being Indian and being the only Indian in the room by being usually the only blind person in the room.
That you know of.
That I know of. Exactly. And it was funny. I met a colleague of mine, Steve, whose last name begins with a Z, speaking about the Z thing, before, but I forget his last name now. And I was sitting down next to this guy, and I'm handing him my card. I'm like, yo, dude, what, are you blind? He's like, exactly. I'm like, oh, me too. You know? It was
Well,
like-
this opens the door to a great story that we experienced.
Yeah.
Right? This
Yeah,
is
yeah, go ahead.
hysterical. Okay,
Yeah.
so our listeners, we meet. We're talking on the phone, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, let's meet. Let's talk about possibilities, maybe working together, et cetera, collaborating. So we meet this restaurant. Albert's there before I get there, and it was slow time.
It was in New Jersey, right?
New Jersey, in New Brunswick. New
Yeah,
Brunswick.
yeah,
You were
yeah.
there for a seminar or a conference, et cetera. So I walk in, I see you sitting at the bar, and I think Vaughn was with you at your feet.
Yes. No, that was still Doxy. It was about 2 years ago?
I don't know. The dog was doing shots. I'm not sure which dog.
Then it was Vaughn.
Okay, Vaughn.
Doxy doesn't drink.
Oh, we walk up. Hey, how you doing, Albert? My name's Mark. Great to meet you. We're getting along like two pigs and whatever that expression is, and we're hanging out.
And a poke.
Probably, I'm not sure if it's before dinner or after dinner.
After.
I'm getting the sense, I'm thinking, I think, Albert, you think I'm blind. All of a sudden it comes out, and then you're like, you're not blind? I'm like, no.
Why the hell did you call me then?
I'm visually impaired. We had a great laugh on this, man.
I remember that. And the funny
Oh, my
thing is now
God.
here you are. You and I have been trying to make this happen
Yeah.
ever since.
Yes.
And, my travel plans, I mean, I barely have a relationship anymore. Why I'm not divorced yet is beyond me.
Maybe that's why it works.
I know, right? Well, at least
Great
distance
methodology.
makes the heart grow fonder,
Yes.
I guess. But the people that I met with, it was actually the Commission for the Blind in New Jersey.
That's
just
right.
called last night and said, we're ready to start doing something. I'm like, wow, Mark is keeping the schedule going with them,
That's
too.
funny.
Yeah, really
Interesting.
cool.
Really
Again,
interesting.
serendipitous.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
The show is Insight. My name is Mark Farrell. Albert Rizzi's my guest. He's the founder and CEO of My Blind Spot. So when you decided to, you lost your job and you decided, I guess, not to travel down that path anymore, you're going to create a platform that can change the rights and perspectives and accessibility for all.
No. Well,
Maybe
I
some.
really no. It was really more self-serving. Honestly, that's where we got to. Again, what it started out is learning that doctors who we see to prevent blindness, once we acquire blindness, really don't have the information in one concise place to direct us to gain back as much independence and as much confidence as we need in our everyday lives. So I decided I was going to be, going into the schools, teach the kids, start at the ground level. So it kind of morphed a bit. I was going to do educational outreach, and then I realized that
It's bigger than this.
it's much bigger than this. Every time I tried to go onto a website to pay a bill, to shop,
Hours later.
oh my God, Fresh Direct? Now, I'm sharing this because I think we can. Fresh Direct, I remember sitting down. No, I apologize. Step back. It was Peapod. Peapod, 18 hours after living by myself, it took me to place an order, only to find out that after it was done, I kept saving it, $2,167.35 later. Their platforms are so screwed up. I tried calling them. Well, guess what? They got sued. They didn't listen to me in 2007. Fast forward to today, and My Blind Spot, myblindspot.org, is working with our partners at UsableNet. They're a global company that we've partnered with who do accessibility compliance checks. They do automated testing, training, education, and we bring a contingent of disabled professionals or professionals with a disability to the table.
And expertise.
To check and recheck, total expertise, and use to test everything. And we are now working with Fresh Direct to improve their platforms. And one of my testers, who happens to be an elder in the community, don't get mad at me, Myrna, we know you're 72. But she is a trainer extraordinaire. She trained my trainer, who trained me, who's now working for me. They both work for us now. When I look back at the way we pull this together. I had said to Fred Quick, who's on our team now, when he was teaching me how to use a computer for the first time as a blind person, I said, dude, you're going to work for me one day. He's okay, yeah. Like as if if every blind person said that, yeah. And here we are, many, many years later, and Fred is heading up one of our training programs and with QuickBooks that we've worked on. Myrna's working with on testing. And Myrna just tested with Fresh Direct after we had done some remediation work on the website and had said, my God, 2 years ago, I walked away saying I would never come back. She said, I can't believe how wonderfully simple it is to use this platform.
Fantastic.
Oh, it really is
now,
amazing.
for people without any blindness or visual impairment issues, that we're talking about navigating a website. What we all take for granted that so someone with vision loss can go on, whether it's Audible, it's easy to navigate because obviously this is the world we live in nowadays, and it shouldn't take someone 18 hours to order a bunch of bananas.
Well, let me clarify that a bit. Again, no, I don't want the misnomer or confusion with My Blind Spot thinking it's about blind people. We approach inclusion in a very universal fashion. We look at the larger community of people who are collectively referred to as print disabled. And I'm going to mention some names of people who most of us probably don't know are members of the disability community. Richard Branson, Virgin fame.
Oh, sure.
He's severely dyslexic. You do a Google on him, some of the things that have happened to him over the years before he became this mega
Sure, and I think he's got ADD, ADHD,
Yeah.
all the AAAs.
Cher's dyslexic. Einstein was dyslexic. Michael J. Fox, Parkinson's disease, mobility impaired. Edison, low vision and hard of hearing. Steve Wynn.
That's why I needed more light.
Yep, need more light. And that's why I think that's oddly enough, as a blind person, I bring light to people's lives.
Isn't that
funny?
crazy?
Yeah. And Steve Wynn, Wynn Casinos, Bellagio fame,
I'm not familiar with this.
blind. He's got RP. He keeps it. It's one of those things.
Really?
I guess once you become visually impaired or blind, and if you could, and that's one of the things too. Given his age, we were taught just like when you go back to the history of the African Americans or the blacks in the country. There were people who are high yellow. There were some people who were, oh, you're an Uncle Tom, or you're just trying to be white, or you're not black enough. Even in our blind community, there are these gradations of, oh, well, at least you're a high partial. You can see. Oh, yeah, well, it's a degree thing.
It's amazing also within the hearing community.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these hierarchies.
They have these, it's very odd.
It's very odd, it is.
So we work with people who have mobility issues, Parkinson's, low vision, and then us. And if anyone out there listening who's not disabled would like an invitation to join this club, just let us know.
There's
You'll
a
turn
spot
it down
for
in
you.
5 seconds, right? So then we also talk about our veterans who are missing arms, who can't use a mouse or a keyboard. People with cognitive issues who can't process things on the screen as quickly as others. All the simple programmatic codes that go into a platform, whether it's a website, a mobile app, a software program, help a multitude of assistive devices, which range from a screen reader, which takes the text on a screen and creates it, transcribes it into an audible output, or a magnifier, which is self-explanatory, a braille display where people use a monitor or basically a keyboard where there are braille that pops up for you to read on the screen. Or even
I've never seen that.
Oh,
Really?
it's really cool.
How old is that technology?
Sorry?
Is that new technology?
Oh no, it's been around for a while. They used to call them PackMates, all the other things. But if you don't know about it, you don't know about it. And then we have something called Dragon Speaks for people with mobility impairments or
well, that's just great for
disabilities.
anyone because you get
Yeah.
carpal tunnel, you don't want to type, you have ADD,
Yeah,
and you don't want to sit at a
so
keyboard, you can
that's-
walk around
And that's where your point
Dictate,
of we
sure.
really do work to inspire access for people of all abilities. Because if we could make these platforms work better with hands-free technologies, people can be more productive. So basically translated, what we do is we make sure that you can use your computer without a screen, without a mouse, with keyboard manipulations, which has been how we used to use it pre-mouse days, or a speech-to-text technology just like Narrator in Microsoft or Dragon Speaks. So we really are an all-inclusive, focused organization. We just don't focus in on blind people.
and all these elements come together to give people an opportunity to be a part of the workforce.
Well, yeah, and they can choose to be part of the workforce. What I'd like to say, we are opening up opportunities for people to make independent choices rather than being pigeonholed into something they don't want to do, or that's how I would say opening choices to people. But it does. One of the things we start to impact now is everybody's worried about the public forums. Oh, I can't go on the website and shop. Oh, I can't go and point and click and do this. Well, the disability community happens to be 1.3 billion strong. That's larger than the population of China. Then we have 2.3 billion friends and family.
Now, the first stat, was that spending power?
No, 2.3 billion people. The spending power
planet-wise,
all over the
55
world.
million in the United States.
No, it's 58.7.
58. Sorry.
No, don't be silly. So I've become very proficient on these numbers.
Yes, you have.
$8 trillion worth of discretionary spending power. Which, when we understand what discretionary spending power is, that's the money I use to pay my mortgage, pay my rent, pay my utility bills, pay my phone bills, buy my food, things I have to do. No luxuries, no extras, right?
This is existence money.
This is existence money, which we all spend. We all have to. We have to participate. We have to have that. And then you layer in the 2.3 billion friends and family, people, bodies, who are empathetic about people paying attention to us. And you have a market base that is so freaking huge. We don't need to do this because, it's the right thing to do for the poor disabled person.
It's needed.
It's absolutely – no, it's a business.
It's warranted, sure.
101.
It's a model.
It's a smart business
And
thing.
also think about the timing of everything with you losing your vision, starting My Blind Spot, and the boomers.
Yeah.
This
the whole thing
huge
is –
population.
and that's what most people don't pay attention to in the community is every one of us every day, whether we care to believe it or not, are being dragged in, kicking and screaming into the disability community. We're losing our eyesight. Our vision is becoming less. Our ability to move is becoming compromised. We're getting hip replacements, all of these things. And when you take a look at the number of baby boomers and then layer in the millennials that are coming behind us, who are not willing to be those disabled people of the 50s or the 40s or the 60s who get rolled out on Veterans Day or on any other, like, talking about Jerry Lewis, for a
Muscular
fundraiser,
dystrophy, sure.
with some sense of, let's feel bad for these people. And we roll them back for the rest of the year into another hole until we bring them out.
Yeah.
We want to live. We want to love. We want to procreate, recreate. They don't want to do this anymore. And that's where we look at. I look at doing preventative medicine for people transitioning into this community or our young millennials because that's where the future is going to go.
Absolutely. So talking about the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, is this a agency or a community that you are in charge of spearheading?
Well, we are founding members of the IAAP, and that was just brought in under the umbrella of the G3 ICT. All these acronyms, I'm getting dizzy. But the G3 ICT was founded by a remarkable man, Axel Lebois, and the IAAP was an association that was born out of a commitment of major organizations. Microsoft was behind it, IBM, Disney, Adobe. I'm sure there are people out there that I'm forgetting to mention. They're going to curse me out tomorrow. Barclays Bank, Paul Smith, my buddy, that decided if we were going to change the way people implemented coding to create accessible, usable digital environments, we had to assure people that there were professionals out there who could do it. So My Blind Spot was a founding member, one of the nonprofit founding members of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. And we are to this day still working with them very closely. They've been absorbed into the G3 ICT. I was just at the UN the other day speaking.
You spoke, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, no. Talk about a humbling experience.
Yeah, no kidding.
How the hell could I ever think this was a bad thing to go blind? The places I've been, I feel like Dr. Seuss.
From charter school
The places I've been, the places I'll
to
see.
the UN.
Oh, I know. And it's
Wow.
and in less than 7 years, it's like, it's actually 11 years, let's say, because if I count the time that I lost my eyesight on December 9th, 2005. We actually, wherever I can, I'll speak about the types of inclusion we have to work at because, again, it's good business.
How was the reception there at the UN?
It was stupid. It was so good. I had people actually. I had the good fortune of having Michael Fembeck in the audience, who is the executive director of an organization called Zero Project, based in Austria. And they award organizations for jobs well done and the advancements of inclusion for people with disabilities in employment. And he came up and he insisted that we apply for recognition in this year's running. And so far, we're up to the second level of being approved, and I'm hoping to go to Austria again to receive the award.
Fantastic, of course.
Oh, I'm so on pins and needles with that. But, yeah, no, it's sick. It really is. And we work with... again, through our partner with UsableNet, our ability to really take the work of the IAAP forward has been remarkable. We also we have offices in downtown Manhattan and out in Long Island, and we are an official testing center for the certification process. So the IAAP, we are an educational association where people can come together, discuss best practices to implement the WCAG standards, which is the Worldwide Consortium of Accessibility. What's the G word? I don't know. It's there somewhere. Governance. So best practices for accessibility governance. And we are a testing site where people can come and get that certification.
So that's kind of like one tentacle of My Blind Spot.
Just one.
Yeah. And so talk about some of the My Blind Spot services. I'm going to rattle off a few, and you can jump in and tell me which ones because obviously we don't have time to speak about all these incredible services. Accessibility for executives, motivational talks given by yours truly.
Truly.
Exactly. Accessibility program guidance, accessibility policy and statement development.
Well, what I basically say, I don't want you to, it's accessibility governance services. I like to look at, and we approach this holistically. We have the capacity. We don't reinvent wheels at My Blind Spot. We take the best of the best that are out there, and we take each little patchwork of a larger quilt, and we weave them together, and we thread in the best of the best, and we create this blanket that's going to wrap the corporations in a way that allows them to infuse inclusion into the DNA of their corporate culture, from the boardroom to the mailroom, and then right back up to the boardroom again. And we do that through education and training, whether it's provided through our partners at UsableNet or other people that we work with that are more proficient or efficient at doing whatever it is. We do accessibility remediations. We do automated testing of your websites to help you understand where the breaches and the deficiencies exist so you can fix them. We bring in usability testing conducted by professionals proficient in each of their assistive tools who also happen to be stakeholders in the outcomes and a person or persons with disabilities themselves.
Now, when you think about the corporate environment, you always think about diversity, racism, sexism, et cetera. Now, when you approach these companies or there's a meeting ground or through the IAAP, however you are connected with them, do you feel that they're doing this out of the genuine interest to support people with disabilities, or they're doing it because, well, this is a trend and this is the way we have to go? Or maybe starts out that's where I was going. I think initially we all go at it with the concept of giving a person with a disability a job as an extension of charity. And I think right now, as we become more aware of ability, we look at corporate America and we see diversity programs at best usually are about they have different focuses on orientation, gender, race, and religion. 1/5 of the entire population in the world are not included in that, and that's the ability, aka the disability. I like to say, don't diss my ability, okay? I'm not disabled. A bomb is disabled. You can disable a computer, but if you basically, I felt that the world was disabled, the virtual world was disabled to me because of unintentional oversights imposed by engineers and IT people who didn't have a clue. So if we unlock, at My Blind Spot, we believe access to the right tools promotes ability and restores infinite possibilities in everybody's life. That's a universal truth. Absolutely.
So if we code things properly, ability can be one of those diversity groups. And that whole thing was realized at one of my presentations with Morgan Stanley. We happen to work with Morgan Stanley, and we're in dialogue about continuing the good work that we've been doing together. when we look at it empathetically, a compassionate, empathetic connection, you're going to know somebody who's got a mobility impairment, somebody who might have ADHD, somebody who might be dyslexic. You're going to have one degree of separation from somebody with a disability. And
sooner than later.
Well, no, if not currently. I mean,
sure.
1 in 3 people know somebody, but we don't look at it this way because when they're close to us, we don't see them as disabled.
And you shouldn't be. Yeah.
Right. But we look at other people who are.
Yeah. We're just temporarily able-bodied.
Correct. But when we look at, if we tap into that compassionate, empathetic sense of appreciation for my spouse, for my son, my daughter, my uncle, my aunt, my friend, and we, again, what our country is, what our society is missing, that sense of humanity and appreciation for our fellow man. If we realize that everybody is our brother or our sister, we're going to make sure that nobody ever gets denied access to do whatever they want to do. And right now, back in the 70s, we had to incorporate wheelchair ramps and handrails and elevators into physical realms. And unfortunately, 80% of the virtual world is expecting people like myself to carry that shit on my back, rather than building it simply into the process at the get-go.
And Albert Rizzi, we're running out of time here, but I just want to quickly mention that something's pretty interesting, that the 2018 is going to have a lot of changes, correct? The state of web accessibility?
It's going to be, we're going to be accepting the international best practices and standards that the rest of the world are following as set by the W3C. So there's going to be a change. It's going to be very good. And the change is already happening. Yesterday, this week I was at the USBLN, the United States Business Leadership Network, which is a consortium of corporations that work on creating inclusion for people with disabilities into the workforce and creating ability as one of those diverse programs within the diversity program. And it's remarkable. We were there and we did the first accessibility usability technology track, and it was so well received. It was fantastically received. And I'm happy to say one of our partners, American Airlines, happened to have been selected as one of the top places to work in if you're a person with a disability in the country today. Wow. So, and there's many, many others. But,
skies are getting friendly.
They are. And the skies are getting friendly. And one thing about American Airlines is they're making sure the grounds are just as friendly, too.
Good.
So it's really great. And just touching on two things. Knowing you have a time crunch. We talked about being in the right place at the right time with Neil. People were in the right place at the right time the day I had to be taken off of a flight. And there are certain things that we as humans, we as brothers and sisters can do for one another. He saw something and he did something. If you see something going on that you think is not right, say something. Lenny Dykstra, with his entitlement programs, there are different entitlement programs that we have to deal with that allow us or hamper us from growing. His idea of entitlement, because he thinks his shit didn't stink. I unfortunately have to deal with entitlement programs that we are stuck being held down by, and this current administration is trying to remove the entitlement programs. But if we're going to remove the entitlement programs, I want corporate America to step up and make sure we have accessible digital platforms so my people, myself, with master's degrees, I can go into any workplace, any office space that I can go get a job so I can decrease the demand on the entitlement programs that are draining our society, reinfuse the economy that way, and then make me a taxpayer. We have at least 30 million people who are disabled, who may want to go to work, not working, right? And they're capable, adept people. If you look at Forrest Gump as the median, Forrest Gump up to PhD. Who would ever deny Forrest Gump a job? He overcame mental, physical, social, and economic adversity. I want to be able to make sure we do that for people of all abilities so we can have a stronger economy and we can value people for what they bring to the table rather than what we're judging them for. And then serendipity with Jerry Lewis. It was serendipitous that we got to meet.
It was
serendipitous that I have become blind. And there are just wonderful things that can happen in instances where it's just a little happenstance, like going blind or being in a restaurant at the same time.
And now realizing your dinner mate is blind. Or isn't.
Albert
Rizzi, founder and CEO of Mind Blind Spot. It was such a pleasure getting
It was
to know
mine.
you and
Thank you. I'm
talking
glad we
to
finally
you.
got to this.
Yeah, it really has. And mindblindspot.org, myblindspot.org. Read about the initiatives, programs, and how you can partake in this incredible organization. My name is Mark Farrell. The show's Insight. If you'd like me to speak at your company, corporation, and more, check out markfarrellmotivation.com, markfarrellmotivation.com. Special thanks to Jesse and Kelsey and executive producer Luke. Gary Knowles next. Mark Farrell. Have a great day.